I'm already in contact with the Foreign Office through Jim Dutton, the Governor of Gibraltar. I expect to be able to speak to people in London during the course of today if necessary. And the important thing is to ensure that we understand that there are two aspects to this incursion. First of all, there is the important aspect of law enforcement and ensuring that law enforcement agencies across the Straits, from Morocco, Gibraltar, and Spain, work together to stop the scourge of drug trafficking, which they have done very effectively on a number of occasions, although there's no official protocol on that because Spain doesn't want one, but they do work informally together very well. And the second, and obviously the one that is politically very worrying, is the continued incursions that really make a mockery of British sovereignty over British Gibraltar territorial waters.
In terms of the first point that you highlighted there, might it be a case of the Spanish authorities not having confidence that the Gibraltar authorities will be able to catch the suspected smugglers?
Well, that would be absolute nonsense, of course, because the record of the excellent Gibraltar law enforcement agencies, the Royal Gibraltar Police and Her Majesty's Customs in Gibraltar, speaks for itself. Assisted by the Royal Navy and by the Gibraltar Defence Police where necessary, they have captured and confiscated many hundreds of or tens of thousands of tons of cannabis and of other drugs, and they've of course also arrested and incarcerated many drug traffickers. And the resources now at the disposal of the Royal Gibraltar Police and Her Majesty's Customs, since we were elected, for example, in terms of maritime assets, outstrip anything that they have ever had before. It's very difficult indeed for a drug smuggler, for a Spanish drug smuggler, to come into British Gibraltar territorial waters and not be caught by the assets of the Royal Gibraltar Police and HM Customs. And of course, if Spanish law enforcement are involved in chasing them from outside BGTW, if they give us a heads up, then we're in a much better position to assist them to capture and confiscate.
In the world of diplomacy, of course, as you know, Mr. Picardo, signals are important. And the statement yesterday from the Foreign Office came from Mr. Swire, a junior Foreign Office minister, not even the Minister for Europe. In fact, I think he's a minister for the Falkland Islands, ironically enough. Do you think that perhaps it might have been more appropriate for this statement to have been issued by the Foreign Secretary himself?
Well, the reason that Hugo Swire was the minister responsible for issuing the statement is because he is the on-duty minister. Other ministers are away on holiday. The Foreign Secretary himself, as you know, is in Singapore celebrating with the Singaporean authorities the 50th anniversary of the independence of Singapore, and he was the man manning the station, and therefore it was quite appropriate for it to be Mr. Swire who made the statement. You shouldn't read anything into the fact that it was Mr. Swire. He's been making a number of statements on a number of important issues, and the fact that it was made by him I don't think suggests that there's any lack of importance being given to this issue in that respect in the Foreign Office.
OK, and from your own perspective, what would you like to see done? In the past, we've said that when there are incursions that we should have bigger boats, or perhaps the Navy should have a more permanent and larger presence here in Gibraltar. What do you think, ideally, in an ideal situation, the UK should be doing?
This is not the sort of situation where we're talking about a larger Navy boat being of assistance. Remember, that's the sort of issue that is relevant when we're seeing other types of incursions by Spanish state vessels. So when they bring in their hydrographic vessels, when they bring in their military vessels, etc. What we're dealing with here is law enforcement being in hot pursuit of a criminal. And what we need in respect of this type of incident is for there to be real cooperation. Now, the fact is that we complain a lot about the Guardia Civil's incursions, as we rightly should, because they come in and patrol and pretend that these are their waters. But in terms of law enforcement, they actually have a good de facto cooperation with the Royal Gibraltar Police, and they get in touch and they work together. The SVA, the Spanish Customs, seem to be in a bit of a frolic of their own or under different political instructions, and they're not cooperating. So on this issue, what I want to see is I want to encourage cooperation between law enforcement agencies and respect for Gibraltar's jurisdiction and sovereignty. On the wider piece, I've said on a number of occasions that I think the peaceful assertion of British sovereignty over these waters with, if necessary, larger vessels or more permanent vessels than those already available to the Royal Navy Command in Gibraltar would be a step forward. I'm not the only one who has said that. Penny Mordaunt MP, who is the Minister for the Armed Forces, has been in Gibraltar. She has seen for herself the assets that are available. The guys in those Royal Navy boats are very young guys indeed. They have to exercise a lot of restraint and behave very maturely when faced with the very immature actions of some of the Spanish state actors that we see performing in our waters.
A final thought, Chief Minister, before I let you go. Isn't the unfortunate reality that we keep having incidents of this nature, especially in the hot summer months, the culebron, as the Spanish press like to call it, and that once the initial outrage has subsided, everything goes quiet again until there's another incident, when there's another protest, and so on, and nothing really gets done to sort this problem out once and for all in the long term?
Not behind the scenes and not in Gibraltar. I must tell you that the team in Number 6 Convent Place, the team in the convents in Gibraltar are constantly in touch. We don't forget these incidents. We're still trying to deal with some of the incidents that have already passed. We keep trying to put them at the top of the agenda in King Charles Street in the Foreign Office. We bring them to the attention of the United Nations. I had to bring to the attention of the United Nations the shooting of a jet skier using rubber bullets 3 years ago. Some people in Gibraltar thought that I shouldn't have done that because I offended some Spanish sensitivities. Well, look, that is how we ensure that these issues stay at the top of the political agenda internationally. And when we have the opportunity to bring to the attention of the world what has happened, then one of the aspects of the diplomatic response of this is to embarrass Spain to realizing that this is not something that covers her in glory internationally. That's why today I'm doing a lot of international media. I've done already Sky and the BBC. I'm doing Reuters, and I'm doing other international news networks, ITN in particular, to get the message out, to ensure that people understand what is happening and that Gibraltar wants to deal with the issue of drug trafficking as much as anybody else and not allow Spanish politicians to pretend that somehow Gibraltar is a haven for this type of activity. Quite the opposite. The expertise of our excellent Royal Gibraltar Police and HM Customs has to be utilized to stop this evil trade.